The security guard at the gate radioed ahead about an urgent situation. I watched through my home office window as a red Ferrari screeched to a halt in my circular driveway, its custom paint job gleaming under the afternoon sun. Out stepped Natalia, my ex-husband's new wife, clutching a leather portfolio like a weapon. I took a slow sip of my tea, imported from a small plantation I'd acquired last spring. At 45, I'd learned that patience was the deadliest weapon in any arsenal. Mrs. Anderson, my housekeeper, Maria, burst in. That woman is demanding entry. She has papers. Let her in, I said calmly, switching off my laptop, where I'd been reviewing acquisition proposals for 3 new luxury developments. And Maria? Please record everything on your phone. Discreetly. Natalia's heels clicked aggressively across my marble foyer. Even I had to admit she was stunning, all long legs and perfect features that only youth and expensive surgeons could provide. The kind of woman my ex-husband James had traded me in for after 20 years of marriage. You need to pack your things, she announced, not bothering with pleasantries. Daddy's company has acquired this property and we're demolishing it to build something more elegant. Her red lips curved into a cruel smile. Though I suppose you wouldn't know much about elegance. I glanced down at my simple black dress, admittedly a stark contrast to her designer ensemble. Please sit. I gestured to the antique chairs I'd imported from a French chateau. Would you like some tea? I don't have time for tea parties, she sneered, throwing the portfolio onto my desk. These are eviction papers. You have 48 hours. I didn't bother opening them. How interesting. And your father's company would be Summit Luxury Properties. She preened. Daddy just acquired this whole community. He says it's been mismanaged. She wrinkled her nose at my decor, which had been featured in Architectural Digest last spring. Obviously. Summit Properties, I mused, owned by Robert Sterling. My father is a very powerful man, she gloated. This little house you've been squatting in, it's nothing compared to what we're building. I smiled, remembering Robert Sterling's desperate pitch meeting last month. He'd never met the owner of Aurora Development Group, the silent corporation that had been buying up prime real estate across the country. He'd sent endless proposals, trying to partner with or sell to us. Does your father know you're here? I asked mildly. Daddy lets me handle all sorts of business now, she boasted. And my first order of business is getting rid of my husband's sad ex-wife. James told me how you begged to keep this house in a divorce. Pathetic. I thought about James, about how he'd assumed the house was my only asset, never questioning where I disappeared to during all those charity committee meetings over the years. Men like him and Robert Sterling never looked too closely at a woman's business interests. Tell me about these renovation plans, I said, buying time as I watched Maria's phone discreetly recording from behind a vase. We're tearing down all these dated mansions, she gestured dismissively. Building modern homes for people who actually belong in luxury communities. She smirked. I told James it was embarrassing having his ex-wife living here like some charity case. My phone buzzed. A text from my CFO about Sterling's latest proposal. I held back a smile as I read it. And you're certain your father owns this property? Of course I'm certain, she snapped. The deal closed last week. Summit Properties owns everything. The houses, the golf course, the clubhouse. Now pack your bags before I call security. That would be interesting, I murmured. Considering I signed their paychecks. She blinked. What? Summit Properties did make an offer, I acknowledged. It was denied, rather firmly, as I recall. You're lying, she said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. Daddy said. Your father, I interrupted quietly, has been trying to get a meeting with Aurora Development Group's owner for months. He's quite persistent. Aurora? Her perfectly lined eyes widened. But that's the actual owner of this community? Yes. I opened my laptop, turning it to show her the proposals I'd been reviewing. Along with about 30 others across the country. Your father's latest offer was quite ambitious, but ultimately inadequate. She snatched up the portfolio, papers spilling across my desk. This is impossible. You're just a housewife. James said. James said what he knew, which wasn't much. Men rarely look too closely at their wives' charity committee meetings or investment club luncheons. I stood smoothing my simple dress. Would you like to see the real property documents? I need to call my father. Her hands shook as she dug for her phone. Excellent idea. Though perhaps you should also mention the way you burst in here threatening the owner of his most coveted acquisition target. I'm sure he'll be thrilled." The blood drained from her face. "Please, please don't tell Daddy." "Now why would I do that? I picked up my teacup when watching you try to evict me from my own house has been so entertaining. Though I should mention, the Ferrari you drove up in, it's parked in a no parking zone. I hate to have it towed." She backed away, designer heels stumbling. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is. But feel free to have your father call me directly. I believe he has my office number." I smiled. "Oh, and Natalia, the next time you want to threaten someone with eviction, make sure you actually own the property first." Real Estate 101. I watched through the window as she sped away, already dialing frantically. Maria appeared at my elbow with a fresh cup of tea. "Shall I send the recording to your lawyers, Mrs. Anderson?" "Please, and Maria, call the property manager. I think it's time to review all residents' lease compliance, especially the Sterlings." My phone buzzed again, Robert Sterling's number. I let it go to voicemail, imagining his panic when his daughter told him whose house she just tried to seize. But this was just the beginning. After all, I hadn't built an empire by revealing all my cards at once. I picked up my phone, dialing my lawyer. "David, remember that hostile takeover strategy we discussed for Summit Properties? I think it's time to accelerate our timeline." The next morning, my security team alerted me to 3 separate calls from Robert Sterling. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the real estate conference where I was scheduled to be the surprise keynote speaker next week. The same conference where Sterling planned to announce his acquisition of my properties. "Mrs. Anderson," my assistant Sarah buzzed through. "Mr. Sterling and his daughter are at the gate. He's quite insistent." I pulled up the security feed on my laptop. Robert Sterling's Bentley idled at the entrance, while Natalia slumped in the passenger seat, looking considerably less polished than yesterday. "Let them through," I said, "but have security escort them directly to my home office." I switched screens to a Zoom call with my board of directors. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we're about to have some unexpected entertainment." Minutes later, Robert Sterling burst through my office door, his expensive suit failing to hide his panic. Natalia trailed behind, refusing to meet my eyes. "Ms. Anderson," he started, then faltered as he saw the board members on my screen. "We need to speak privately." "Why?" "I think the board would be very interested in hearing about your daughter's attempt to seize company property." I gestured to the chairs. "Please sit." "This is all a misunderstanding." He tugged at his collar. Natalia was overzealous. She didn't realize that she was threatening the owner of Aurora Development Group. I finished. "Interesting, since you've been pursuing a partnership with us for months." "I had no idea you were." He glanced at my simple outfit and the modest office decor. "The rumors said Aurora's owner was a man," I supplied. "How disappointing that someone of your experience would make such an assumption." On the screen, several board members smiled knowingly. Many were women I'd met during my early days, when we were all underestimated by men like Robert Sterling. "The deal?" He tried again. "We can still make this work. A merger between Summit and Aurora." "A merger?" I pulled up his company's financials on my laptop. "Your company is leveraged to the point of collapse, Robert. Those acquisition announcements you've been making, all smoke and mirrors to attract investors." Natalia's head snapped up. "Daddy, what is she talking about?" I continued. "In fact, your hostile attempt to claim ownership of my properties was likely a desperate move to secure funding before your creditors called in their loans." "That's not," he sputtered, but the guilt on his face was clear. "Your father," I told Natalia, "has been running a shell game, announcing acquisitions before securing financing, using each announcement to attract investors for the next deal. But it's all falling apart, isn't it, Robert?" He slumped in his chair. "How did you? I've been watching you for months. Your aggressive expansion, the inflated purchase prices, the mysterious private funding that never quite materialized." I closed my laptop. "Did you really think I wouldn't investigate before letting you anywhere near my properties?" "We can fix this," he pleaded. "A partnership." "Actually," I interrupted, "I had something else in mind." I slid a document across my desk. "This is an offer to buy Summit Properties. The price is fair, considering your debt load." He snatched up the paper, face reddening as he read. This is highway robbery. It's generous, given that I could wait 2 months for your company to collapse and buy it for pennies on the dollar. I smiled. Consider it a premium for solving my problem quickly. What problem? Natalia demanded. Your residence in my community, for one. The terms of the buyout include immediate vacancy of all Summit-owned properties. I met her eyes, including your father's house. She gasped. But that's our home. Like this was supposed to be my home? I asked mildly. Before you tried to evict me? Robert gripped the arms of his chair. You can't do this. I already am. I pointed to my screen. The board has approved the acquisition. Your creditors have accepted our terms. All that's left is your signature, unless you prefer bankruptcy. Daddy, Natalia's voice shook. What about my wedding next month? The press announcements. About that, I pulled up another document. Given Summit's misrepresentation of assets, we'll need to issue a correction, particularly regarding your claims about owning this community. Robert's face went ashen. The publicity will be devastating, I agreed, though perhaps not as devastating as your daughter's recorded attempts to illegally evict the actual owner. Natalia burst into tears, mascara streaking down her cheeks. This is all James's fault. He said you were just a sad divorcee living off alimony. Yes, about James, I checked my watch. He should be receiving some interesting news right about now. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. I smiled as I read it. It seems your husband just discovered his position at Sterling Investment Group is being eliminated in the restructuring. I told Natalia, a restructuring that's happening because his father-in-law's company is being acquired. You planned all this, Robert accused. You let Natalia make a fool of herself just to trap us. No, Robert, you did that yourselves. I simply gave you enough rope. I pushed a pen across the desk. Now shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? For the next hour, I watched Robert Sterling sign away his crumbling empire. Each signature seemed to age him, while Natalia alternated between tears and furious texting, presumably to James, who wasn't answering. As security prepared to escort them out, I held up a hand. One more thing. I handed Natalia a small card. The contact information for my first real estate mentor. She specializes in helping young women build legitimate careers in this industry. I met her shocked eyes. In case you decide you'd rather earn success than marry it. Why would you help me, she whispered, after what I did? Because 20 years ago, I was underestimated, just like you're being underestimated now. The difference is, I chose to prove them wrong through hard work, not marriage. She stared at the card for a long moment before slipping it into her purse. After they left, my board members applauded. Beautifully handled. Our chairwoman smiled. Though I suspect this isn't the end of the story. No, I agreed, thinking of James and the other dominoes yet to fall. This was just the beginning of their education. My phone buzzed with another text. James finally discovering his world was collapsing. I let it go to voicemail, instead pulling up the real estate conference schedule for next week. It was time to prepare my keynote speech. After all, I had quite a story to tell about the dangers of underestimating women in business. The real estate conference's main hall fell silent as I took the stage. In the front row, Robert Sterling sat ashen-faced, while James shifted uncomfortably beside him. Natalia was notably absent. Apparently, she'd flown to Europe after the tabloids caught James moving out of their mansion. Success in real estate isn't just about properties. I began scanning the crowd. It's about recognizing value others miss. Like when people mistake a simple black dress for weakness or assume a woman at a charity lunch can't possibly be building an empire. Murmurs rippled through the audience as recognition dawned. I clicked to my first slide, a photo of the eviction notice Natalia had tried to serve me. Last week, a young woman tried to evict me from my own house, I said, and scattered laughter followed. She assumed, as many do, that a divorced woman in her 40s must be living on alimony. That assumption cost her father's company everything. Robert Sterling stared at his shoes while James glared daggers at me. I continued, enjoying their discomfort. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about the costly mistakes we make when we let prejudice blind us to opportunity. I clicked to the next slide, Aurora Development Group's portfolio. While certain companies were announcing imaginary acquisitions, we were quietly building the largest luxury residential portfolio in 3 states. The numbers spoke for themselves. Gasps echoed as people realized just how much I controlled. Today, I'm announcing Aurora's expansion into commercial properties. I paused for effect, starting with the complete acquisition of Summit Properties and its subsidiaries. Robert Sterling stood abruptly, heading for the exit. James started to follow, but my next words froze him mid-step. And as part of our restructuring, we're launching a mentorship program for women in real estate development. I smiled directly at James, because talent doesn't care about gender or age, something my ex-husband never quite understood during our 20 years together. The audience erupted in applause as James finally fled the room. I wrapped up my speech with the announcement of 3 new luxury developments, then stepped into the wings where my team waited. Mrs. Anderson, my assistant, handed me a phone. Natalia Sterling is on line 1. She's calling about the mentorship program. I took the call, surprised to hear genuine humility in her voice. I've spent 2 weeks thinking about what you said, she admitted. About earning success instead of marrying it. I'd like to learn the right way this time. Be at my office Monday morning, 7 a.m. sharp, I told her. And Natalia, leave the Ferrari at home. You'll be starting in the leasing office, learning from the ground up. Thank you, she said softly. And I'm sorry about before. After hanging up, I checked my messages. James had finally figured out I'd owned his company apartment all along. His eviction notice had just been served. My lawyer approached with final papers from the Summit acquisition. Robert Sterling signed everything. He's taking early retirement. Make sure the settlement includes a non-compete clause, I instructed. And James? His golden parachute just turned into lead. The board approved voiding his contract due to ethical violations. I nodded, gathering my things. Outside, my driver waited with a car, not a Ferrari or Bentley, but a sensible luxury sedan. The kind that suggested success without screaming desperation. As we pulled away from the conference center, I spotted James arguing with the valet about his repossessed car. Robert Sterling stood nearby, looking lost without his company badge. Should we offer them a ride? My driver asked with a smirk. No, I settled back, checking emails about my next acquisition. I think they both need to learn the value of walking. My phone buzzed with a message from Natalia. Thank you for the second chance. I won't waste it. Perhaps that was the best revenge, not just winning, but teaching the next generation of women to succeed on their own terms. After all, success is the best response to those who underestimate you. I opened my calendar to Monday, adding a note, 7 a.m., begin Natalia's real education. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in transforming them into allies, even if you have to take everything they have first to teach them the lesson.